Hi, Dave here. This is one of our single product reviews, but it's also part of a roundup review where I compare it with similar items. If you want to watch that, check out the YouTube description for a link, or if you're on our website, just have a look below this video. Okay, let's get into it. Interested in this stand but don't have time to watch the whole video? No problem, this is the executive summary. And I can tell you that this stand is huge. It's about the tallest one you'll find, and it's got a tilting mechanism so you can have your projector at different angles. They are the two major plus points. It's also reasonably well built and it looks okay. Negatives are the platform doesn't have any grip, it doesn't have a lip, and it doesn't come with elastic bands. The fact that it's a tilting mechanism means you can't use a universal screw fit, so you can put this platform on but nothing else. It doesn't fold down very much and it's very heavy, so it's not that portable. And it's a rather expensive stand compared to a lot of its competitors. So I would recommend this if you need huge height and a tilting mechanism. Otherwise, maybe look elsewhere. Okay, this is the overview. As ever, I've not researched this product yet, so this is my first time looking at it and I'll step through it with you. So, first thing to note, it's quite a substantial box and there's a bit of weight to it, so I think this is going to be a fairly hefty stand. Alright, a couple of bits in the box, a request to write a review, customer support number, US based customer service team apparently, and register your product. Oh, I should have said, it does say on the box made in China, so you know, just the usual there. We've got some assembly instructions, and then got a couple of bits of the stand itself. This is the main section. It does have some considerable weight to it, that. We've got a few attachment pieces, a few screws if you can see them there, and a whatever you want to call this thing. And then the platform itself, which is heavy, it's made of metal, a little bit peculiar. It's just got sort of one sloping lip down that side and nothing on the other side. And it looks like it's going to have some kind of tilting attachment. So, we'll have to see how that works out. And this is going to take a few minutes, so time to fast forward, I suspect. Okay, these are not very good instructions. It's referencing placing screws into the tripod base, but then there's no picture of anything to do with putting any screws into the tripod base, and the only two screws it gives you are both referenced later in the instructions. Still, I think, to be honest, I can put the instructions down and just do what appears to be the obvious things that need doing, so no big deal. I've done it. That was frustrating, to put it very mildly. In case anyone watching this buys this particular product, and perhaps you will, because despite this bad start, maybe it will turn out to be amazing. What I was just struggling with there was you have to screw these two screws in here, and I was just trying and failing and trying and failing, and I ended up testing each bit of it, the washer, this black bit, and the actual screw thread inside to figure out where I was struggling to screw into, assuming it was going to be the thread on the actual central column. It turns out this black plate here is almost too small to allow the screw to go through, so you have to do it very, very carefully. Anyway, that's sorted now. So, what can we say? Let's just bring this down to a more manageable size for starters. Alright, so, starting at the bottom. I don't think I can collapse this. Alright, wow. Okay, sorry about that. Starting at the bottom. Plastic feet. So, not rubber, and therefore there's going to be not much grip there. But then, how often are you really going to be putting this anywhere where it's going to slide? Not often, and at least they're rounded off, so they're going to protect your floor a little bit. They open up nice and easy, and then you just lock it off like that. Just taking a general look at the thing, it's fairly sort of sleek plastic. It kind of looks enormously bulky, but also therefore sturdy, and it feels it too. I'm going to say with confidence that this is never going to break. I'll be highly surprised if anyone's moaning about it online. It's a pretty basic bit of kit, so there's nothing much else to tell you from that point down. This is just a straightforward, you unscrew this and then you can lift it up towards its maximum height, which I'll check out in a minute. And then let's have a look at this top bit. So as previously mentioned, the plate's only got one lip on it, which is weird. It also hasn't come with any kind of foam pad here that you would normally expect to dampen vibrations and noise. There are no elastic bands that you would normally get to hold the projector in place. On a sort of vaguely positive note, the size of the shelf is big enough that you'll be able to put a projector on it. This is a fairly sort of standard mid-sized domestic projector, and it fits on kind of like that, so you've got about the same amount of space on both sides there, so that's adequate. And then let's just check out this tilting mechanism. Just make sure it's in camera. That'll do. Okay, so I think the idea is we can just loosen this off and then tilt it. Yeah, not loads. But in fairness, the other stands that tilt go on about how it can tilt 180 degrees or whatever. And if you're using them for something other than a projector, I can see how that could be handy. But if you are buying for a projector, which is what we're talking about, this kind of level of tilt is probably about all you're going to need, so that's fine. So let's just find out. So if you've watched any of my other reviews, especially, well, involving tilting stands, you'll know that it can be a real bad weak point. But this, I feel like it has been made to tilt. So at its full tilt, I've just realised it's quite obvious that this is not going to collapse because it's actually at its full extent, so it's being stopped from going any further. So I suppose the important thing to know is if you put it on sort of half tilt, will it then accidentally move and potentially break your equipment? And that is a pretty definite no, so that's solid. So that's nice, it means it's got a tilting mechanism and it works. Which to my mind makes it more strange that they haven't then designed this platform to be good to have a lip all the way around it. But there you go. One thing to note is that because they've gone for this tilting mechanism, they don't have the benefit that a lot of more basic projector stands have of a 3/8 or 1/4 inch screw at the top of the central column, so you can't use this to screw a projector directly onto the column or any other kind of standard AV kit. But that'll do for the overview, I think. That's what it's all about. This product doesn't have a huge number of interactions on Amazon, so there aren't that many questions and answers, but there are a few. Which means that there are no trends to identify. There's nothing that people are picking up on loads of times, so we'll just go through a few of the individual questions. The first one that I read, and probably the most interesting one, is someone saying, will it hold a projector? Essentially asking, does it take a lot of weight? I have to admit, this isn't something that I was necessarily going to test, because the look of this stand is so kind of sturdy and weight bearing. I just would have assumed it wasn't going to be a problem. But this question was asked, so I did just look into it and was surprised and slightly disappointed to find that even if you tighten up these knobs really tight, let's see if I can just replicate now. If I lean on this, okay, that looked more like it was moving than going downwards, because it kind of did, but it does actually go down a bit. The reason why it moved around a bit there is because one of the things that happens is that the legs start going further apart. So that's not great. Having said that, in order to make that happen, initially at least, I was really having to lean on that. It's difficult to guess what kind of pressure I was applying, but I'm assuming that was probably equivalent to, I bet that was at least 30-40 kilograms worth of pressure. So it's not going to collapse under the weight of a sort of medium weight standard projector. The one person who I've seen commenting negatively about its ability to hold weight specifically referenced that they put a high-end projector on here. They don't state the weight, but it must be something really, really heavy. Nevertheless, you know, that is something to bear in mind. It comes about because the actual locking mechanism, it's not that anything's collapsing here, nothing is going to break. It's just that the locking mechanism is just one of these knobs that you turn and it applies pressure on the central column, which is a bit of a weak way of doing things, it has to be said. So that's something to bear in mind. Someone asked, what is the diameter of the tubing? To which the response was, yes. Not always the most helpful comments on Amazon, but it did make me just have a quick look. I mean, it's very, very thick tubing, which, you know, aesthetically might not quite be to your taste, although it does make it look sturdy. To put a number on it, it's about 4.5 centimetres diameter. And then a couple of people asked, does it come with a carry bag? Something I forgot to mention at the start when going through the things that you do get with this is that one of the things you don't get that is fairly standard with most projector stands is a carry bag. There is not one in evidence for this. Possibly part of the rationale for that is that it doesn't fold down very much, this stand. So if you were going to have a carry bag that you could actually fit everything in, it would have to be fairly enormous. Again, when it comes to negative reviews, there aren't loads, so no trends identified, but people do make a few good points, so I'll just quickly list them. There's a few people say it arrived with missing parts. That does happen sometimes. It kind of applies to all projector stands, so nothing to actually worry about there. Just keep your fingers crossed it's not you and send it back if it is. People mentioning no grip on the platform, as previously mentioned, that is a negative. A couple say it's difficult to construct. Well, that's something I can easily agree with. The shelf being small is an issue. I mean, it depends what you're going to use it for. That you can certainly get a projector on here, so to be honest, I don't really think that's something to worry about, but it is a fairly small shelf relative to some other stands. Someone points out that it's not very portable. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, it kind of all depends, doesn't it? You know, compared to some other piece of furniture, this is actually very light and easy to move. But compared to a lot of projector stands, it's actually rather large, heavy, and doesn't collapse very far, so not that portable by projector stand standards. A final negative point is something that I hadn't actually recognised until I read this and measured it, which is that the minimum height this goes down to when it's all set up is extraordinarily high compared to normal stands. It only goes down to 116 centimetres, which is 46 inches, or to put it another way, kind of like hip height for me, which, you know, bearing in mind some projector stands will still be usable when they're collapsed down to about 20 centimetres, is fairly ridiculous. So I guess there are limited circumstances in which that is going to bother you, but if you do happen to need a stand that can be used whilst being low to the ground, this is definitely not one for you to buy. Looking down the positive reviews, there's a few people saying it's easy to assemble, which doesn't fit my experience, but I mean, I think I get it. If you've never bought a projector stand before, which I assume is going to be the case with the majority of people buying one on Amazon, you're not going to have any frame of reference, and you might not know that an awful lot of projector stands don't actually really require any assembly at all. So spending a few minutes screwing these bits together may just feel like that's completely fine. And realistically, it is no big deal. Lots of people saying it's sturdy. I mean, that's probably partly due to the way it looks, but also because when you put it together, it doesn't move around, it doesn't rattle, it does feel sturdy too. And realistically, despite our earlier test, I have to describe it as being genuinely sturdy. You would have to put something really heavy on here to recognise that there are limits to that. Quite a few people mentioning the fact that it tilts. That is quite a rare feature on a projector stand, but it's one that quite a lot of people comment about wanting. So it's a major plus point for this stand, the fact that it tilts and it does so well. And then the height, where you kind of potentially suffer a little bit for the large minimum height, you also potentially gain from the fact that its maximum height is a huge 63 inches or 160 centimetres. The average projector stand goes up to a maximum of more like about 45, 47 kind of inches. So this is a significant increase on that. And off the top of my head, I think it's the tallest projector stand I'm aware of. Certainly when it comes to these tripod style stands. Alright, let's just run through my core competencies for projector stands. The first one being maximum height, as I assume that's something quite a lot of people are bothered about. And as already mentioned, that is an enormous 63 inches, so this gets a huge thumbs up in that regard. Number two, minimum build quality achieved. I would say that is a definite yes. So there's an issue about putting really heavy stuff on here, but aside from that, it's really well put together. So that's got to be a yes. Likelihood of breaking at some point in the future. That is a definite low risk. I mean, it's a chunky piece of kit with very little going on in terms of working parts. So if it works out of the box, I can't really see that changing in any significant way in the future, even with a lot of use. Approximate price. This is something to understand about this stand compared to others. It's currently retailing for around $50, which is a solid kind of $10 to $15 more than other stands, including a couple of fairly comparable ones. So if there is nothing that I've told you about this that makes it really stand out as one that you definitely want to buy, you may want to consider getting a different one and saving yourself a little bit of money. On the other hand, if there is something about it, and I'm going to suggest that might be the height and the tilting ability that you do really like, well, it's not that much more money, so it may well be worth it. In conclusion, this stand is a bit of a mixed bag. On the positives, it is super tall. It looks okay. It's sturdy up to a point, but that point is quite sturdy. And it tilts. They're your major good points. Your negatives are that it could be considered too tall when it comes to minimum height. The platform is lacking in various ways. It's quite small, it's not grippy, and it doesn't come with a grip, it doesn't come with the elastic bands, and it doesn't have a lip round it. It's not that portable by projector stand standards because it doesn't really fold up very well and it weighs rather a lot. And finally, flexibility of use. The fact that they've decided to use the tilting mechanism means it doesn't have a kind of universal screw fitting, which means you can use it with this platform but nothing else really. That's the end of this review. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you found it useful. If you want more information or if you want to make a purchase, if you're watching this in YouTube, there are links in the description, or if you're watching it on our website, there are links on the page. Thanks and see you next time.